Hey, everybody. Good afternoon. It's Pastor Ty here for this week's sermon preview. This week, we're going to be studying Mark chapter 6, verses 45 through 56. So we're going to finish chapter 6. This will be week 4 of us being in this chapter. So we've definitely taken our time and given it the attention it deserves. Mark 6, 45 through 56 is the documenting of Jesus's walking on the water, which, of course, comes right after Jesus fed the 5,000. So this is a rich piece of the Markan text where Jesus's prolific miracles are underway in a great way. So what I'm going to do here for the sermon preview is I'm going to read the passage, and then I'm just going to sort of clue everybody in on the main pieces of the text that I think deserve us attending to and given our careful consideration. So Mark 6, 45 through 56. We're going to start at the top. Immediately, it's one of Mark's favorite words, he made his disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side, to Bethsaida, while he dismissed the crowd. And after he had taken leave of them, he went up on the mountain to pray. And when evening came, the boat was out on the sea, and he was alone on the land, and he saw that they were making headway painfully, for the wind was against them. And about the fourth watch of the night, he came to them walking on the sea. He meant to pass by them, and when they saw him walking on the sea, they thought it was a ghost and cried out, for they all saw him and were terrified. But immediately he spoke to them and said, "Take heart, it is I, do not be afraid." And he got into the boat with them, and the wind ceased, and they were utterly astounded, for they did not understand about the loaves, but their hearts were hardened. When they had crossed over, they came to land at Gennesaret and moored to the shore. And when they got out of the boat, the people recognized him and ran about the whole region and began to bring the sick people on their beds to wherever they heard he was. And wherever he came, in villages, cities, or countryside, they laid the sick in the marketplaces and implored him that they might touch even the fringe of his garment. And as many as touched it were made well. So that's Mark 6, 45 through 56. And this is a familiar piece of Mark's text, but I want to focus in here just for a moment on 4 quick things and give us something to start to chew on and work on in preparation for Sunday. So the first thing I want us to make note of is there's some recurrences happening here in Mark 6 that we've seen previously in the text. And we'll begin right at the top. Notice that Jesus dismisses his disciples, has them get into the boat to go to the other side of the Sea of Galilee. And while they're doing that, we're told that he removes himself and he goes up onto a mountain to pray. So there's a couple things to make note of here. One, that Jesus is isolating himself in order to go pray. This is not the first time in Mark's gospel that Jesus, at a point in time where he's rather popular and many are speaking about him, that he removes himself with intent to commune with the Father. So this has already happened before in Mark, and we would be remiss if we didn't catch it happening here. This also will not be this is also not the first time that Jesus removes himself from the crowds while he's popular, goes to pray to the Father, only to return and find himself once more inundated with more individuals that are seeking him in a furious fervor of sorts. And so I want us to make note of this idea that Jesus is intentionally removing himself to commune with the Father and pray. This is not the first time that's happened. And here's a new one that's starting to appear in the Markan text. Jesus goes up onto a mountain. Now, this time he goes alone, but this will not be the last time Jesus ascends a mountaintop. The next time in Mark's gospel he does this, he will not be going alone, and something rather significant will happen. So the text is also preparing us for what's coming ahead. The second thing I want us to make note of is Jesus's what Mark says happens when Jesus is out on the water and he's walking towards the disciples. Specifically, it says, and we're going to focus a lot on this on Sunday as we unpack this. It says at the end of verse 48, he meant to pass by them. Now, if we aren't careful and we're only reading the gospel narrative in our own language, it would sound like Jesus is trying to like tiptoe or sneak by the disciples. But we know that can't possibly be what Jesus is intending to do, because it says just before that he saw them laboring against the headway and that he intended to go out to them. And so this can't be that Jesus both sees the disciples straining at the headwind and also intends to sneak by them. So something else is happening in the text. And so as people prepare themselves for Sunday, I don't want you thinking, oh, well, like what's going on here? He sees them struggling, but then he intentionally does something miraculous, but doesn't want them to see. Like that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. And you're right, that would not make a lot of sense. And that's because that's not what's happening in the text. And so this, he intended to pass by them, is something we're going to focus on Sunday. And in the meantime, all I'll do is leave you with this Easter egg, which is to say, it's really hard to properly place Jesus's ministry in the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, without a proper understanding of all the ways it connects back into and works alongside and interconnects with Old Testament narrative. And so all I can say for now, in preparation for Sunday, is that this he intended to pass by them is picking up on something that occurs in multiple places in the Old Testament, and that is what Jesus is up to here. He is inserting himself in a new situation in a way that's supposed to cause the reader to reimagine or reconsider pieces of the Old Testament text, and that is certainly what's happening here. Number three. The third thing I want us to catch in this text is what happens after Jesus identifies himself to the disciples as himself, gets into the boat, and the wind ceases. We're told that the disciples are utterly astounded, but what I want us to noodle on and really think about between now and Sunday is this. Mark identifies that the reason that they were astounded is twofold. And we're really gonna press on this on Sunday. Number one, they didn't understand the loaves. What's up with that? So Mark wants us to see this event where Jesus walks on the water, eases the disciples' terror, gets into the boat, and the disciples' immediate response to this. We're supposed to be seeing that connected to the miracle Jesus just did where he fed the 5,000. So we're supposed to be seeing these two things in conjunction, and the disciples are not calibrating them properly. The other thing I want us to make note of with that is this idea that their hearts were hardened and why that matters. And so that's another thing we're going to press in a lot on Sunday, that this idea that they didn't understand what Jesus had just done, and that the reason they can't understand is a heart issue, not a cognitive issue. So they don't have a knowledge issue; they have an existential issue. And so we're going to talk a lot about that on Sunday. And then the last thing, number four, things to consider as we prep for Sunday. The idea that when Jesus enters Gennesaret and he's going around the region and people are bringing their sick out into the marketplace and imploring him to help, we catch this moment where we're told that that they might, even if they just touch the fringe of his garment, as many would be made well. The careful reader will notice that that's not the first time in Mark's gospel that we have this idea that people are reaching out to just grab the edge of Jesus's garment. So we're going to be connecting this activity of Jesus to other parts of Mark as well. So those are the big pieces of Mark, of the end of Mark 6, that I want us to be meditating on between now and Sunday. That Jesus goes up onto a mountain and he separates himself with intent to commune with the Father. That Jesus intends to pass by the disciples. We're going to focus a lot on the disciples' immediate response to Jesus's latest miracle. And we're going to see why it's important that all the people that are surrounding the region of Gennesaret that Jesus ministers to at the end of the chapter, why it's so important that they sought to touch the end of his garment. So that's all for now. God bless you. We'll see you Sunday.